talk shows. Find your own voice, lead from within. With me today, Claudia Passa and Carol Ann Cooper. Claudia, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure, absolutely. I'm Claudia Prischer. I'm an intuitive energy healer / theta healer and a mindset coach as well. I help my clients to identify the limitations in their blocks so that they can change them around and attract the life they would love to live, and to understand as well that they are worthy of this life.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Carol Ann, please.
Lovely, thank you. And good afternoon from London, UK. And as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support women in becoming more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their story written. Because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann. So our topic today is how to set boundaries and why are they important. Claudia, you chose this topic, and I know that boundaries are good for us and they are good for people around us so that we are clear about how we want to be treated, and so people around us can understand our limits, and they can really get to know us for who we are and our behavior, and respect our principles at the same time. So I just want you to explain to our audience why you chose this topic and what it means. What's the story behind it, please?
Sure, is it me? Yeah?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is as well with boundaries, we all have heard about it. It's something, a message which is strongly coming up now in social media and blogs and so on. And yeah, it's just something we don't really do. I mean, I haven't done it for so many years. And first of all, I would love to understand the audience as well, why it is we might think that we don't that we can't create those boundaries in our lives. It's like on some level we could think or believe that we don't deserve them, the boundaries. It's just like in regards to self-worthiness, and as well that we don't, because of this, we don't even give ourselves the boundaries. And we might as well think that we don't deserve that kind of respect from others. Again, this leads to self-respect and worthiness, very important points. And we might think as well that we could feel unloved or even rejected if we express our needs in our voice too. And exactly as well, we people please. I'm sure most of us did this in the past, to be like the people pleaser, just like in regards to as well to gain always something. And most of the time is acceptance, belonging, and to be loved. Yeah, and something else as well, we do everything to avoid conflict. This was me actually. Yeah, just like as a Libra star sign, I love my harmony. I dislike the conflict. So actually, yeah, this relates very strongly to me, avoiding conflicts and then just keeping quiet. Yeah, and we are as well afraid to voice our needs to the others.
Absolutely. And avoiding conflict was something that was very much in my family. We were not confrontational. And so that's how I grew up, being non-confrontational. And actually talking about boundaries, it's only, I guess, the last few years or so that I've really thought about boundaries and heard about them, because it's not something I was aware of before. I might have heard the word, but it didn't mean anything to me. And now it's starting to mean something. And actually so welcome this topic today, because it's like diving in again and looking at it. It's something I read this morning. There's a beautiful quote. It was an anonymous quote. Lack of boundaries invites lack of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, but unless you actually know what you want, what your boundaries are, how can you set them?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was also very much how I grew up, because I really didn't know what I wanted, or what I wanted, or how I wanted it, or and as you say, there's that you don't want to say no because you want to have that affection. You don't want to think people are going to think ill of you, or that actually you're not capable. I think that was something I ran, was I'm capable, I can do this, and I can take on anything. So you just don't like to say no. So, and I didn't realise that, and I recognise that. It's where that happens in my job a lot. But as I said, I grew up with and being in a non-confrontational family. And so for me, confronting anything was hard, but it became a way of life. So it's like it's what's the word? You grow up accepting that as the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my mum always used to go around the houses. She never went straight to the point. So again, it became a learned behaviour. That's the phrase I'm after. It's a learned behaviour. You don't confront anyone, and you go in the houses. You don't say what you're thinking. And so I had this fear about saying what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And half the time I was thinking, well, I don't know what I'm thinking, because you sort of push it down. So actually acknowledge, really getting to know, what are your boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
What is it you're comfortable with or not comfortable with? And what are you willing to put up with? And being able to say no. And that was something I learned quite a few years ago now, with a company called Landmark. They do personal development events, and I assisted with them for many years. And in the beginning, I assisted a lot. I was like, yes, I'll assist at that event, and I enjoyed it. And then it got to a point where I felt I need to say no. And I realized that actually they would keep asking, and they're happy if you say yes, they'll keep asking. But they were also happy if you said no.
Mm-hmm.
They respected your no. And for me, it was quite liberating when one day, so I was asked if I could assist at a particular date, and I said no. And they said, well, do you mind if we keep, asking you for other dates? I said, no, as long as you don't mind me saying no. And it was like, no, we don't. So it was great, because all of a sudden I didn't feel like I could avoid or wanted to avoid the telephone call that I knew they were going to be asking me if I wanted to assist or would be able to assist on a certain date, because I knew I could say no. Didn't need a reason or an excuse. No is no.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so liberating.
Mm-hmm.
It just meant that they could then move on and ask other people. They would stop pestering me, so to speak. Not pester, but they wouldn't hold me in that space of, well, maybe she could. And so come and ask me again. No meant no, right, move on. And I think that's also where you can then respect other people who say no. Not take it personally. And in a job, if you're asking for the sale, you've got clients and you're wanting a sale to sell something, no is no. Respect the no, move on.
Mm-hmm.
And there is being able to, understand what you're willing to put up with. And it's really important, because otherwise there is this unhealthy feeling inside of you. You know, what do you think, Nomsa?
I do agree with you, Kiro, on setting boundaries. Basically, it helps people around us to understand who we are, what we can tolerate, and also it helps people to actually get to know us really, really well, because there are some people that they put on the personality, and you ask them to say, can you do this for me? Even if they are busy, or even if they can't, they'll compromise their own life and say yes. I have friends like that. If I want them to look after my daughter anytime, they always say yes. But when it comes to them seeking help, they are like, they can't do it. So I'm like, I don't understand why should, if you have friends around you, if I ask you, can you help me? Or I don't ask every day, but you do say yes. But when it's your turn and you struggle, and I can see the struggle, why don't you ask? And they're like, I don't want to give problems. I don't want to say. I'm like, by the relationship, it means freedom. You have to know about, you have to create principles, and those principles, for me, basically, if you are my friend, you have to be honest. Yeah, there is a freedom I need. If you call me a friend, my boundaries are, you have to be honest. It's like, if you need help from me and you're not asking for that help, so what kind of a friend am I? So I always question my friends, that means you are not my friend. If you feel that you cannot ask me for help, or you cannot tell me what is going on, of course, some things you don't want to talk about it, but just tell me I'm not okay. So my friend, I have a friend that goes to school with my daughter. I've taught her to do that. Now she actually, she calls me, Nomsa, I need your help. I'm like, okay, I'm at home. And she'll come and drop her daughter. But before, she wouldn't do that. So I'm like, and then I had to explain to her that here's my boundaries. If you want to be my friend, there's freedom. You have to feel free that you can seek help from me. You have to feel free that you can be the person that you want to be, not to feel that, or I can't say this to Nomsa, or I can't do this, or if there is an advice that you want to give me. We are friends, we are honest, we need to be honest with each other. So that's what I teach my friends, that honestly, let's be honest. And if you're crying out loud, I need to know you cry. You don't have to tell me your story, but you can tell me that, no, I'm not okay. So those are some of the boundaries that when you are friends, like here at Ngozi Talk Shows, we know our boundaries. We know our boundaries. Like Kero Anna, when you go, you're like, Nomsa, I know I can rely on you. And I know I can rely on Claudia. I know I can rely on other speakers as well. There are some speakers that I know, if they say, Nomsa, I can't come in today, I know they definitely have something going on. And then I just have to say, whatever is going on, you know that I'm here for you. So I know that I can rely, just if you can have someone and set those boundaries to say, listen, let's have a good relationship. Carol Ann goes on a holiday, or she spends time with her family. I know she's not going to turn up, but she's going to say, no, sir, I'm not coming today or next week, but I've arranged someone for you that is taking my place. So I know I don't have to be stressed. And the day she says, no, sir, I have not been able to find someone, I will understand too, because that's how life is. Not everything has to go smooth in life. So it's very, very important to basically to basically to be comfortable when you are with family, with the tribe, whatever the tribe that you're with. It's very, very important for that tribe to understand who you are as a person. It's very important, like even with our beliefs. We we don't have the same beliefs. Like myself, I always say to people, we don't have to have the same beliefs. with whatever we believe in, but we can listen to our beliefs. I'm happy to listen to your beliefs, even if I don't believe in them. I'm happy to listen because you're my friend. And also with my beliefs, you don't have to judge me with my beliefs, and I don't have to judge you with my beliefs. So my boundaries basically is accept people for who they are. You want to come to my cycle of life, I've put principles in place. And those principles, there are no rules, because rules, it means I just put principles. And when those principles are violated, I don't chase people away. I try to find out why they behave the way they behave, because some people behave because of is going on in their lives. So even with a relationship, we have to create principles. With business, we have to create principles. With business, if you are my staff, you are running late, you wake up late. There's no need to say, no, sir, I basically am stuck in traffic. Just say, no, sir, I just woken up. I'm running late, I'm gonna be late. So honestly, basically is the best policy for me to ask from people, that just be honest. Because one day I'm gonna wake up late and I'm gonna say, listen, I'm running late. So there's no point in me maybe screaming and say, why are you running late? Why this? If you are running late, I'll be like, is there a job that is important that needs to be done before you come in that I can do? And I do that job. As long as you're not going to take me for granted, because I will not let you take me for granted. So I'm cool with it. You want to spend time with your family and not come here to go to talk show, I'm cool with it, Carol Ann, as long as you're not taking me for granted. Over to you, Claudia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it seems that Nomsa, you already established a good relationship and good boundaries as well with yourself and others. And the boundaries are applying in all different areas in our lives. It's like the romantic relationships, the co-worker, our children, friends. So it's just like in all the areas. And I would like the audience to, if this is something new to them, at some point as well, to go into them and to ask them actually to get to know that part of themselves which is afraid to create a boundary. And as well, why is it afraid to create the boundary? And where does it feel in the body? And what does the body need as well at this stage? Just like to a bit like get a feeling for one. Because in the end as well, our people outside in our world, they are not psychics. They can't read our minds. So this is why it makes logical sense to create those boundaries and to learn as well to say what it is we need and how we feel as well in this very moment.
Absolutely, and I love what you said there about creating a boundary, and if there's any, don't know if I can do that. It is having that awareness in that moment of what stops you and getting present to what is stopping you from creating that boundary, and more importantly, upholding that boundary. Because there's one thing creating it, it's another thing upholding it and being a stand for it. So again, explore both, because, okay, having created that boundary and cleared whatever it was that was holding you back or stopping you, then it's upholding it. And for me, it reminds me of when I actually decided to use both my names and be called Carol Ann. I was always Carol as I grew up. Ann is my middle name on my birth certificate. And when I started doing this personal development work and finding me, it felt more appropriate to call myself Carol Ann, because it's got a completely different feel to it, a different energy. Carol is who I was as I was growing up. I was a completely different person then. And now, as Carol Ann, again, if you could, I don't know if you can hear the difference or feel the difference, but to me, there's a difference. That so many people, I'd introduce myself as Carol Ann, and they'd say, just Carol, in reply. And it took me a long while to feel comfortable to correct somebody. There was that, oh, I can't do that. I would pull back.
Oh no,
I'd
you
feel that
corrected
anxiety.
me so many
I know.
times.
But this is in the beginning. This is years ago in the beginning. It was very much, I couldn't, because of all that, it was that confrontational element, standing up for myself. But also I'd have people say, well, shouldn't it be one word? And I go, no. We shouldn't have a hyphen in it. And I go, no, it's two separate words. And it was like, oh God, do I really have to? Wouldn't it be easier just to acquiesce? That's what came up for me. Or shall I put it together as one word? Should I put the hyphen, or should I just ignore it when they don't say Caroline, they just say Carol? It felt like it would be easier to, as I say, acquiesce and back off. But then it came a point where it was like, no, this is my name. Two separate names, Carol Ann. And I became more clear at actually pronouncing it as well. Because before I wasn't very clear, because I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't reinforcing it, that boundary that this is my name. And once I started being comfortable with that and actually correcting people and not making them wrong, it's like, look, you know, I just like you to know that I prefer to be called Carol Ann. And I'll even email people back now, and they'll come back and say, oh, sorry, you know, but they know. And if somebody doesn't know, or you don't let them know that this is my name, it's not just Carol, it is Carol Ann, how are they supposed to know? And how are they supposed to know that actually it makes a difference to you? And it has a jar to me when somebody just says Carol. I've got used to my family doing it because they know me, they grew up with that. And I'm really grateful for those members of my family that have taken on board and do call me Carol Ann. But when I hear someone say Carol, it's like, oh, it just jars me. And so being able to now be comfortable with and know that I can stand up and say, and however people take that, it's up to them. Because for me, this is my boundary. This is what matters to me. And actually, most people now, because I can come from that place of certainty and not making them wrong, it's okay, it happens. And they more often than not, they will follow through with it. And there are some people that still slip back to Carol and then they'll correct themselves. Some will slip back and I have to remind them. And that's okay as well. So it is noticing and then what that boundary is, create it and be able to uphold it. And know that it can take time, but it's persistence and consistency. And that word, consistent, being consistent, this is my boundary. And I have no flexibility on that. Some things you can maybe be flexible on. Doesn't mean that you're giving up on or compromising yourself. It may mean that it's okay. But there may be certain boundaries that no, there is no compromise, there is no change. And that is one of them. So know what they are. Be prepared to be a stand for it. But also be prepared to work on yourself. As Claudia was saying, go in, where does it feel uncomfortable? And work with that. And such that part of you can then come on board and feel comfortable. You're not pulling back, you're not going, oh, it's just here. It just is what is. And it's not a pointing a finger, it's not a blame, it's not a anger. It's just, this is what's so. And you're coming from that place of certainty. And that then people can feel comfortable with. and be able to uphold that for you. And remember, it's a two-way street. If you have a boundary like that, and so for me now, I'm very hot on listening to people's names. How do they pronounce them? How do they spell them? Because again, the spelling is important for me. Carol without an E and with an E. Other people have, it's like, excuse me, that's what it is. It matters. So what matters to other people, understand what matters to them, and be willing to uphold that with them. So I always ask people, how do you spell your name? How do you pronounce it? And I know when I'm listening to someone, I get their name and I ask them how to spell it. It helps me to be able to picture it. And then I know their name. It's a way of me remembering it. But also, it's important to them because there are different spellings of different names. And so that is something that's important to some people. Some people aren't bothered. But most times you'll find that people are bothered. And that creates a connection and a bond. And there's something that I can't explain it. It's a beautiful feeling, actually, that you feel like someone is bothered and cares about what you care about. So I love what you said, Claudia, there, and just take that on and that process. That's beautiful. Yeah. And there's Brené Brown says, when we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, we feel used and mistreated. So where do you feel used and mistreated? Recognize that, because where have you not created a boundary and upheld it? Recognize your part in allowing that to happen. What do you think, Nomsa?
With names, I'm not going to go there. I came to the UK. No one, basically, Ngozi is my name. Is my first name. So I was like, I had to put everything in writing that when in my passport and everything, that no one calls me Ngozi, call me Nomsa, my middle name. So no one calls me Ngozi in my family. Everyone calls me Nomsa. So even wherever I go, no one calls me Ngozi. They're like, oh, if anyone calls me, it means they just read the file quickly and they're like, how do you pronounce my name? I'm like, look at the file. And they're like, oh, Nomsa. I'm like, yeah. So basically, it's legal. Even my letters don't come with Ngozi. They come with Nomsa because I just Nomsa. I made it clear that call me Nomsa, because if I ask them call me Ngozi with your tongue twisters language, English language, oh my God. You'll be surprised at what I get called. So sometimes it's funny when somebody says Nkosi with your language. I'm like, oh my God, you just call me Nomsa, we're good. Even my children can't say it, but it is funny how basically we know what we want in life, but we never really, like Claudia was saying, basically inside we get afraid of communicating what we want, and also we even what we feel. Claudia, you mentioned that sometimes we get afraid to communicate our feelings and our needs. It is very, very important. Like Carol Ann, when you first started in Gossip Talk shows, when I say Carol, you're like, Carol Ann Cooper, please. And I'll see somebody on a WhatsApp saying something, and then they put Carol, you'll be like, no, excuse me, Carol Ann Cooper. But then I just got used to it. Now it's like Carol Ann. It's like something that it's easy because I got used to it and you told me off. But if you were to let me, I would have been calling you Carol. But you just kept correcting me. Like, okay, now it's just like easy. So I think it is very, very important to actually be clear people how you want to be treated, and what you want in life, your values and your beliefs, like Carol Ann and Claudia mentioned. It helps you with your self-esteem when you are able to tell people your needs. When you are able to tell people, no, this is not what I want. I want it to be treated like this. And when you actually look at your well-being and people around you and be able to choose the people that you want to be around, and people that basically love you and respect you, because there's some people that they'll be around people that really treat them bad, and you ask them, why do you let them treat you like this? And they will have these excuses that is because of this. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. But if you look at it in the Bible, God has his principles in place. There is God, there is Lucifer. So God says, if you want to come to my kingdom, I love you for who you are, but as long as you are able to follow my commandments. So commandments are like principles. So in that way, he's showing people that you don't have to live a life that you don't want to live. You can come to me and worship me, or you can do other things. He doesn't force people. So why can't we do it as well? That we feel fear, we feel that we shouldn't communicate our needs. I think anyone that is watching today, if you are somebody who is afraid to communicate your needs, to basically to for people to know how you want to be treated, how you want to be loved. It's like in a relationship, Claudia said it at the beginning that we think people are psychic or prophecies, but they are not. They don't know the future. They don't know what you're thinking. So in order for them to get to know you and connect with you, even with business, when you meet people, this is who I am. You introduce yourself, you tell people who you are, and then they get to know you and your business. And then they ask, how can I help you moving forward? Meaning marketing, spreading the word about your business. And then you explain what your business does. So if you don't explain to people how you want to be treated, your needs, your desires, even in your family's relationship, you have to explain to people. For me, with my family know that they can't call me and talk about any of my member of my family with the gossip. They know they can't. Uh, that one I've made it very clear. I have 7 siblings. They can't call me and gossip about the other one, but they can tell me that that one, your sister annoys me. It's fine. It's cool. I'm cool with it. I'll just laugh on the phone. But any advice that they need from me, I just tell them, sorry, out between you. I'm happy to listen. Those are my boundaries that I've put in place. That anyone that is in my blood. And I do not want to hear people fighting in my bloodline. My family knows that. I love my aunties. I love my uncles. I have so many uncles. I have so many aunties. For me, basically, I love them. If somebody is fighting with them, I always give advice to say, why don't you sit down and find out, do you do any wrong in your life? If you do, if you can see that you do make mistakes, why don't you find a special place to forgive those who have hurt you or who make mistakes? Because sometimes we want people to be perfect, but ourselves, we're not perfect. So I always say to my family, look at yourself, sit down and evaluate your life. If you have the image of God, that God cannot do no wrong, then um, then you feel free to get angry, to get upset. So I always tell my family that we don't need to fight, but we can look at things and explain to people how we want to be treated. Like Carol Anne, you came to Gossip Talk Show and you were like, this is how I want to be called. I want to be called Carol Anne. And in that way, I know, but if you had let me call you Carol Ann and then you go to Claudia, you know what? I don't like Nomsa when she calls me this. Why can't she get it that my name is Carol Ann Cooper? So people do that. So my family, they know that I don't want them. I love them very, very much. I'm happy to listen when they're going through pain or when they are fighting. I'm happy to listen, but I'm not standing in the middle. I can stand in the middle as a listener and say I love you and I love you both. But they have to make a decision how they move from there. So those are my boundaries. I don't help out when people are fighting. For me, my job is to listen as well. And in that way, I, I watched my father growing up with his family. Like when I was born, in like age of 7, they're very close. So I'm trying to keep that thing into my bloodline of closeness, and that is my boundaries. Like Claudia, you were saying, don't be afraid. So I'm not afraid to tell my family that get a life.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is as well, I can already pick up the energy of self-confidence from you and as well, Carol Ann, just by talking about it. And I can feel you are applying what it is you're talking about right now into your lives. And this gives you as well a feeling of self-confidence. And when we are in our own authenticity, this is when we are most sexy and confident, and people feel it because again it's energy. So absolutely I can feel this from both of you. Something as well I'm started
Aren't
to
you
do.
feeling sexy today, Claudia?
Yeah,
She's sick, by the way.
yeah, got some fever, it's fine. The thing is as well in regards to what I started to apply when someone asks me they can if I can do something for them, if I'm free to meet up and so on, I say to them, let me think about it. I come back to you later. Thereby, in the past, I was always saying yes, yes, yes. Again, if I tune into that version of me back then, I wanted to be liked and to fit in. And so it's just like not me anymore. So this is a new thing. And people, yeah, respect it as well, because we just have to train the muscle, say it a few times, and then it becomes more natural for us and for the others. And thereby as well, before we have made such a big fuss about it, but actually just like once or twice with the same person as well, and they get it. Something as well to understand for me was that I can set my boundaries with compassion and self-love. So it doesn't have to be that I'm grumpy, I'm angry. So I can do it as well with this beautiful energy of self-love and compassion.
I love that. I love that. Yes, and I think that's what is important, and that's makes it an even stronger stand if you can come from that place of compassion and self-loving rather than anger. I think when you're angry, you lose it. You've lost the respect of others. Because I know when I see teachers that suddenly get angry with a class and lash out with, "Oh well, you're all going to stay in." You've lost it. You've completely lost the class. You've lost that respect because you haven't had that way of being able to just take a breath and come from a place of compassion and self-respect and be strong and say enough. And something we were talking about last Friday, wasn't it? Noms, being able to say enough is enough. There's a strength in that. But being able to confront and pick out the ones that are causing the main problem and deal with them, and not blanket the whole class with your anger and frustration, because you've lost their respect completely, and you won't get that control back that you want from the class, that cooperation, not so much control as cooperation. And when you have that cooperation, it's a beautiful experience because they know where they stand. And children everybody likes to know where they stand. But children, I think, even more so because they push boundaries. And I remember thinking as my children grew up, they would push the boundary. And I'd have to say, no, this is what we're saying. But as they grew up, the boundary could move because there were certain things we could then allow them to do, or stay up that bit later, or, you know, so the boundaries moved. And so it's okay for them to push it. It's like, yeah, okay, push it, that's fine. And be prepared that, no, that boundary's still there. But know that sometimes it can move. But when they feel that boundary, there's a security, there's a, oh, okay. They feel there's a safety then. They don't feel like they're floundering. They're not lost because they don't know what the boundary is, and therefore they don't know what the consequences are of them actually going beyond that boundary. So certainly, you know, I love what you were saying there, Claudia. And the other thing about saying, being, you know, happy to come back to you. Again, that's that confidence in yourself to say, well, okay, I don't know the answer right now. And that was something I learned when I was teaching. I didn't need, you know, if I couldn't answer their question, instead of getting all flustered and going, oh, I don't know, again, you've lost them, because they get it. You don't know. But if you pretend to know and flummox it all, they know you don't know. They can smell a rat, you know. So it's being able to say, well, actually, at the moment, I can't quite get the answer. I'm not sure. Let me come back to you. And apply that in anything else. I mean, even with my grandchildren now, if they ask me a question and I don't know, I'll say I don't know. If I think I know, I'll give my answer and then say, well, I'm not quite sure. Let's look it up. You know? But I always, with my classes, used to get back to them. I would make sure that, having said, I will come back to you, I would get back to them with an answer. And I did. And then they were like, oh, right, okay. And it gives them permission to realize you don't need to know the answers all the time. You can go and look them up, find them from other places and come back. And something about being able to openly communicate your boundaries. And this is something I've said with my grandchildren, and they sort of, again at school, where something's not comfortable for them, being able to explain to the teacher, well, I didn't quite get that. Could you explain it again? And I think there's some learning both ways to go here, that we need to be able to teach children how to ask for help, and for adults and teachers not to turn around and say, oh, stop, you know, I've told you to be quiet, go away. You're disrupting the class, or, you know, and that's what happens. They're not listened to. And therefore they're made to feel wrong for standing up for themselves and asking questions. And so I've attempted to talk with my grandchildren about ways of being able to not come over as rude, because they say, oh, that's going to be rude. They're going to call me rude. And I go, no, if you're actually coming from a place of, well, I don't quite understand, could you explain this again for me, or be more specific with what you don't understand, rather than, you're not explaining this to me, I don't get it. You know, that anger, that's where you put people's backs up. So again, it's that coming from that compassionate and self-respecting position, and being able to have the language and the communication skills to explain and ask for support. Because again, there's a boundary there. It's like, be willing to ask for support as well. And I loved what you said, Namsa, about don't complain to others. And this is something that I learned at Landmark as well. Something they used to say is, don't go gossiping about a problem. Go and talk to the person that can do something about it. So again, you know, don't go complaining to someone else. Talk to the person who it concerns. Someone that can actually do something about it. And it was like, wow, yeah, of course. It is being able to be that stand, confront the situation. And so it comes back to, can you confront what is there to be confronted. And so I as I said, I grew up with a non-confrontational family, done quite a bit of work around this, and I can now make a stand and actually be a bit more confrontational in terms of being that stand, or having if somebody says something I don't quite agree with, be happy to disagree, but in that compassionate, self-respecting way without making them wrong. Again, it comes down to language, understanding how to use language in a way that you dance in the conversation. You're not butting up against each other and making each other wrong and angry. So again, there's ways and skills to learn. And if you do find yourself butting up and getting angry, the best thing to do is just to stop and breathe. Feel where that anger is, where that frustration is, and just be with it, and then let it go. Let the conversation go until you're ready to come back in a more healthy way, in a more responsive way rather than a reactive way, and clear it up. You know, don't let it hang. Clear it up. So again, there's things that you can be responsible for in allowing people to know your boundaries, understand your boundaries, and to respect them. And Bryant McGill says, you best teach others about healthy boundaries by enforcing yours. So know what your boundaries are and be prepared to reinforce them or enforce them. Where does that go?
I love that, Carol, and when you say you grew up in a non-confrontation family, for me, basically, in my family, are the opposite. My mom and my dad and my stepdad, both of them. Not sure about my stepmom. She was very secretive. Yeah, my mom and my dad and my mom and my stepdad, they're like let it all out. They're like my stepdad would just communicate how he wants to be treated. Like he will say, as a child, I know that we have money and we are very lucky that we have money, we have everything, but it doesn't mean you get to use it the way you want. You have to work for it. So I'm like, why would I work for the money if you are my father? You're meant to support me. Honestly, I'll question him. I'll be like, but you're my dad. Why do I need to work for it? I work when I get a job, when I finish school, but at home, you need to support me. And he'll be like, yes, I know that. I need to support you, make sure you have everything, but you have to work. If you want to go shopping, you can go shopping. Tell me how much you want. I give it to you. But what are you willing to do for that money before you get it? What are you willing to do? I just look at the house and say, okay, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do this. And they'll be like, okay, get on with it. When it's done, you have the money. So I'm like, seriously. But then I've got to understand it. When I was at school, all I wanted was to get out. Now that I have this, my family that have money, that I have to work for it. Their boundaries is I have to work for money. Now in my head, I'm thinking I need freedom. It got me out of the house very quickly, and now I'm working on my own. I'm like, I wish I didn't come. I stay at home now. And then as I realizing now that I'm older, that actually it was their mindset wanting to basically me to be independent and find a job when I'm older, instead of thinking that just because I have parents that can support me. So I completely agree with you. And then you have my dad. My stepdad, he had his boundaries at home. He comes from a rich family, and he'll be like, although I have people working, looking after the kids, a maid, but I didn't marry a maid. I didn't marry a chef. I married my wife. So he would tell my mom that I do not eat food that has been cooked by somebody else. So if my dad is out, my stepdad is away, anybody cooks, we eat. The people that works in the house and everything they cook, we eat. But when he's at home, my mom cooks, they sit down. So those were the boundaries that he'll be like, I want my wife. I married my wife because she cooks really well. And she does this, she does this. So I don't want to lose all that just because I have the money. So those were the boundaries that we knew that if my mom is not there, if my dad is not there, that means my mom doesn't have to worry about cooking. But if my mom is there, whether the people that are paid, they need to sit down. We hang out and go and play with them, or sit down and watch TV, and my mom will cook, and then we'll go and help my mom. The kids will go and help my mom. Those were the rules for my dad, and I would be like, yeah, I'm doing this because she works. They have to look after you guys. They have to look after the house. But when I come home, I want to enjoy the leisure that there's a reason why I married your mother. So all these little things that I married for her, that she makes me happy. Those are the things that I don't want to lose. And I was like, okay, he is so weird. So they'll be telling him off for me. I'll be like enjoying and sit up and put my feet up and say to my dad and winding everyone up, I'm listening. So everyone thought I was his favorite, but I wasn't. It's because I listen when he speaks. I will listen to him and I'll be like, he does make sense actually. And now that I'm in my relationship, I can see the importance that, like Claudia, you have your spouse, and your spouse, there are things that they like about you.
Mm.
And if you get like super rich, and those things they can easily lose. That's why people go through divorce, because they take things for granted. My dad, he used to communicate his needs and be like, this is how I want my life to be. I married my wife, and I want my wife to cook for me. And his clothes, we take his clothes to the dry cleaners and prepare them if he's going out and stuff, make things easy for everyone. But he will say, my food is a simple thing that I'm asking. I just want to enjoy the food. And you can see that the man loves his wife. He loves his food because there was special food that my mom would cook for him. And he wanted that tradition, the way they fell in love, to continue. But at the time, I'll be like, he is so weird, but I'm just going to go along with him.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, Claudia, any words of encouragement? We have to let you go, girl. We have to finish this because you're really not well.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is as well, the world outside is a mirror, and we attract the people always where we have to do the learnings in this regard too. So understanding as well that just by doing it, speaking up and saying as well our needs, we will attract as well less and less the situations for having to do so, because again we accomplished an important lesson in life. Yeah,
Absolutely.
setting the boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you said about in a mirror. Do you want to explain that a little bit more? Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, the world outside is a mirror, and we attract the people where we feel like where we still have like limitations or beliefs around it, or as well where we have to learn the lessons as well, because we are here to learn the lessons in regards to love and self-love and respect and compassion. Just like all the things we're here, life is a school, and obviously as well the boundaries are an important factor related to self-love, worthiness and self-respect. And we will always, most of the time as well in life, no matter what the lesson is, if we really look at it, it always comes back to self-love, self-respect and worthiness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. And actually, what you're saying, it comes back to you, and people come into your life and will push the boundary, because there is that test. There is the universe saying, well, do you have a boundary here? And if you do, are you willing to reinforce it? And if you don't, well, maybe there ought to be one there, because that person is not making you feel comfortable. And so they're giving you that lesson. And I love, there's a quote, it's an anonymous one. Whatever you are willing to put up with is exactly what you will have. So what are you willing to put up with that actually you don't actually want, but it'll come at you because you're willing to put up with it. So again, yeah, I love that idea of there's that mirror out there. People come into your life for a reason. And then once you've learned that and you set your boundary, it maybe they'll disappear because job done. Or maybe that relationship will change in a different way. There's 3 types of boundary. So just check your boundaries and see what they are. There's where you've got a clear boundary. It's clearly stated. It's got flexibility and adaptability to it, but you're able to be assertive with it and communicate it. There are rigid boundaries. They're closed and inflexible. And very often that tends to isolate you, especially in a family, because there's less engagement in the conversation. And then there are open boundaries. They're not clear, they're a bit fuzzy. And here it's where it's hard to have your needs met because nobody knows what your boundaries are. So just check in with how you're feeling with certain situations, with certain people. And how are you feeling? How is it? Is there boundaries? Are they clear? Are they rigid? Or are they open? And what can you then do about it? Because only you can do something about it. And only you can set your boundaries. So play with it. Have fun with it. We don't need to make it serious and, oh gosh, I'm wrong. Because I have, it is what it is. The important thing is that you learn and move on and you grow.
Yes.
That's the key. That's the key.
Plus it gets easier.
Say that again.
Everything, it gets easier as well. With so many things we adapt new into our lives, it gets easier. So yeah.
Yeah, life, you have to basically, for me, basically what I live with the audience is what Carol Annie just said as well. When you set the boundaries with love, unconditional love and freedom in it, it doesn't limit you. Like Carol Annie's mentioned, that don't set the boundaries that will limit and isolate you from other people. Just set boundaries out of love, and so that people can. There are so many people that have really boundaries. They've created their boundaries, but they are loving and they have compassion. Claudia said that at the beginning, you have to have compassion. They are lovely people, and I love that when someone sets boundaries, and at the same time, you can still be able to get closer to them and enjoy their company. So I think that is amazing. I basically have to get rid of my bad habit, basically, and give that freedom myself, even with my relationship as well. I have principles that I put in place, which are my boundaries. But when it comes to relationship, I need to make sure that my spouse can actually, when they feel like now, okay, Noms, I don't like you to treat me like this, or they feel like they want to communicate something, I just want them to be able to have that freedom and say, I can talk to Nomsa about anything, not to say, actually, I'm scared. I always tell my children that if you do something wrong, don't feel that you are scared of telling me or your dad. Because the thing is, we are not perfect ourselves. So we don't expect you to be perfect and do this perfect. So like, if you do something wrong, if I ask you, just tell me, oh yeah, I did that, or I broke that, I did that. Don't just try to say it was this one, it was this one. So It is nice. Just if you set boundaries as well, it helps you to know who you are as well. And people around you, they will know who you are and how you want to be treated as well. So if you are struggling to set boundaries and you have this fear of people judging you and you don't know how, get in touch with Ngozi Talk Show Ngozi Talk Show's coaches, and they will help you to find your own voice. Finding your own voice is part of setting the boundaries and lead from within. Be a leader in your life, your relationship, personal and business and work, whatever you do. So get in touch with us by going to our Ngozi Talk Show page, or you can go to my website, or you can email, you can message Claudia and Carol Ann on social media and find out how they can help you. Live with grace, everyone. We are here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time, and Ngozi Talk Show's family, please subscribe to our channel. Live with grace, and God bless.
Thank you.